Shalom, Hebrews. This Israel been Israel for the Israelite brotherhood. This Israel been Israel for the Israelite brotherhood. And I want to do this video on, a lot of brothers be saying, oh, the Jews stole our heritage. The Jews stole our heritage. And the Jews stole everything from us. And I want to straighten this out. You know what I'm saying? Because, it ain't a whole bunch of Hebrew organizations, I don't know hardly none, explaining this truth, showing that we abandoned our heritage to the Babylonian scribes. We Hebrews abandoned our heritage to some real serious people. Some real serious people that been having control of Western civilization. Babylon was considered Western civilization, and the founding of Western civilization is gonna be Babylon. And the Western civilization, the people who kept its archives, its history, wrote its books, kept its temples intact, and man, they had a bunch of temples and kept everything functioning. These people come from this town called Sippar, and they was placed in our land in 722 BC during the Assyrian troubles. And when we got back on Egyptian religion during the Babylonian wars, probably 134 years after those Babylonian scribes was placed, then we went into Africa and left them everything. We was basically tricked out the covenant. And there's some real science behind this, Hebrews, because the people that we abandoned our heritage to were Amorites. The very same people we were supposed to take their land and destroy their culture. We end up running off and giving them the culture that was supposed to destroy them. You see, that's why come they've been fighting hard to keep us blind and ignorant and throwed off on who we are. Brainwashed us basically during the slavery days. They hurry up and put their mark and tradition down. And then when we came out of slavery, they had their Babylonian schools ready for us to educate us in their system so we could be lost and never claim our Israelite heritage. Okay, we abandoned our heritage to the very people we were supposed to destroy and get rid of their covenant. It's some tricky history, and the history that they've been putting out has been deceptive, and it's false, and it's no good. We have to rewrite history. We have to rewrite history and do history all over. And we have to be showing, what happened. And a lot of Hebrews don't even have the Babylonian scribes in their history and stuff. And these are the Babylonian scribes I'm going to show you. Those folks right there. The Sephardims. The Sephardims history. Those are the Sephardi Jews. The word Sephardim, first of all, they're Amorites because they come from Babylon. They come from Babylon. And the Amorites are the founders of Babylon. And one of the most important cities that the Amorites had founded was called Sippar. And Sippar is the abbreviation to the short word for Sephardim. And Sephardim is the tribal Hebrew word for the Sephardi groups. Sephardi, Sephardic, and Sephardim. They're Canaanites. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that word Jew come from Jebusites. Jebusites ain't nothing but Amorites. And Amorites are Sephardims. And the Sephardim is the Hebrew word for Sephardi, Sephardic, and Sephardim. They're Amorites, and they come from Babylon, and they was placed in our land in 722 BC while we were slipping on Egyptian religion. You see, it's a whole lot going on, Hebrews, and ain't nobody gonna tell you no truth because they don't want us to wake up to our heritage. They don't want us to know who we are. You know, they don't want us to know who we are, because their power come in us not knowing who we are. You know, they get their strength in able to rule because they culture and they everything existence is threatened if we come into our heritage and we worship the true creator. You know, it's like they are responsible for the gods Iniki, the Murdoch, Iniki, his son Murdoch, the whole Gilgamesh epics and everything. You know, that's like, you know, America, when they set this Egyptian Babylonian system up, and both of the symbolic important things from both of those civilizations, Egypt and Babylon, is here, you know what I'm saying, in America. And this is a Babylonian Egyptian system that they took us to after we broke the covenant and went into Africa thinking, you know, to hide from the creator. You know, I'm going to show some biblical verses, you know what I'm saying, on some of this history. But like I say, you know, we Israelites, you know, us Israelites are not Jews, are Jewish. And you can only be Jewish, you know what I'm saying, if you convert to the Jewish religion. You know, that's the only way, you know, Hebrews can be Jews, you know, but the people who are Jews are an ethnic group, and they do have an identity. And it's like the Sephardims history go all the way back to the Tower of Babel. They was there, what they call the antebellum, when the creator sons, when the sons of Yah went into the daughters of man, and then that produced the giants. Well, them are the people that they mix with, the Nephilims and the Rephilims, and Cain descendants got mixed up in there. Cain, the one that killed Abel, he was chased off to the cold regions. Nah, you know what I'm saying, up there in the north, up in the Caucasus Mountain, and his descendants, some kind of way, you know what I'm saying, he made it with them fallen angelic beings some kind of way. You know, if they had some sons of Yah, that they gonna probably have some daughters. But anyway, the Nephilims and Rephilim pop up, and those are gonna be some people with no pigmentation. They ain't gonna have no pigmentation. They gonna be blonde hair and blue eyed like these people here. That's them right there. That's them right there. And then they will mix and come down and mix in Babylon. And that's where that word Semitic come from. That's where the word Semitic come from. And then they will come from the Caucasus Mountain. They will come from the Caucasus Mountain. They will come out the Caucasus Mountain, out them caves and stuff. And Turkey has some caves on the ground. They always hid in Turkey, hid in caves. And Turkey is at the bottom of the Caucasus Mountain. And they had cave cities that can hold hundreds of thousands of people in caves underground. And they are preserved as archaeological sites now, where people go visit, but they walk around underground, and they say hundreds of thousands of millions of people lived underground in caves in Turkey. And that's where, you know, you couldn't get to them, and even if you tried to invade them, that they can go underground and hide for years and stuff, and they can even grow crops and stuff underground and stuff. And that, all that was at the foot of the Caucasus Mountain. And then that's where Cain descendants lived. And then they would sneak on down on the coast over here and go into the Zagros Mountains. This is at the back of Babylon. And you will see that all the wicked cities that produce all the wicked history for Babylon gonna be on the east side of the Euphrates. On the east side of the Euphrates, not on the west side of the Euphrates that could be easily accessible to Africa and other parts of the world, but to the east side of the Euphrates, the Zagros Mountains, which led all into Asia and Europe. You know what I'm saying? Them Zagros Mountains right there is on the back of Babylon and stuff. And then That's where them Nephilims and Raphilims come down from that way, and they lodged in them parts, in them mountains and stuff, and they was right in the back of Babylon, where them Amorites mixed with them. Them Amorites mixed with them, and that would produce the Semitic term, a semi-mix, mixing, half and half, mixing, and that's what they encourage today through the media, is mixing, because then they can capture your soul. When they mix you and you lose your pigmentation, they can capture your soul and you basically destroy it. Okay, well, Cain, C-A-I-N, Cain descendants come down from the Caucasus Mountain with no pigmentation, and they lodged in the Zechariah. That's gonna be them Nephilims and Raphilims, and that'll be them folks right there. That'll be them folks right there. And that's that Babylonian god, and knew it from Sepharavim, and knew it. They done slick put it on $1, and that's that all-seeing eye represent, the higher power, the creator, because only creator can see and watch everything, but that's their god, and knew it. And then they try to trick you and tell you that it just mean our thing. If you listen to them, that's like the Masonic lodges. They'll say, the Masonic lodges are cool, and they benefit civilization and people, and they're just for the good of mankind. Man, they be building the Egyptian system and working the system for those Babylonian scribes, and that they created Masonic lodges. Your first Jews, your first Masonic lodge is gonna have Jews in them, and they put that on the non-Jewish people to control them through their organizations. But Anuit is a Babylonian god, and I'm gonna show y'all some more about this. But look, on the Zechariah mountain is where them Nephilims and Raphilims come in through the back way, when they done snuck out the Caucasus Mountain. And some of them went up in them caves up in Turkey. The other of them went up in the Zagros Mountain. They always kicked it in mountains. The Nephilims, the Raphilims, and the Amorites, because they didn't have no pigmentation. And whenever you read in Tanakh history about people kicking it in the mountains, they was in the mountains. And we had to go fight and get them out the mountains. That's going to be them folks right there. That's going to be them folks right there, ain't got no pigmentation. And they will sneak into Africa too. And they will sail from Turkey. They're called the Sea People. And then they sailed into Libya and hung around them parts in North Africa. That's why non-pigmented people, white folks, try to claim North Africa, because long time ago, them Nephilim, Raphaelim kids from Turkey sailed the Sea Peoples, sailed to Libya, and then they would hang out and cause trouble around them parts, of Africa and North Africa. They would rape, kill, and steal and control North Africa. And then they would call all their relatives, all the non-pigmented peoples, they would call them and tell them to come on down in Africa where some civilization was. But the thing is, they had to live in the mountains and on the coastlines, because they didn't have no pigmentation, and they couldn't survive, and then they would mix with some Africans a little bit and get a little pigmentation. And then they had these group of people called the Berbers, B-R-B-R, the Berbers, the barbarians. Them gonna be they folks, them Amorite offshoots that had come into Africa and they had lived there. And then when we broke covenant during the Babylonian wars in Africa, they would cover our history up with Berber history, with Berber history and stuff. And they would, some of the achievements and things that we did off the promised land, they would attribute it to the Berbers. That's like we built underground water systems that can bring water back to sand from underground and stuff, and them aqueducts, and we would dig tunnels. We would capture the Ethiopians who had a Nephilim, Raphaelim stock to them, from being in the mountains and stuff for Ethiopia and stuff, because that's wherever some mountains at on the east coast of Africa, the Nephilims and Raphalims gonna come, there. And they mix with the Ethiopians heavily, real heavily. They mix with them real bad. you know, the Nephilims and Raphalims and the Amorites did. That's why come they gave them some of our heritage. But let me go back to this, how we abandon our heritage, us Hebrews. We abandon our heritage to the Babylonian scribes. We abandon our heritage to the Babylonian scribes, the people that's responsible for Babylon's history, the Sepharvims. You know, and the Sepharvim is the Hebrew word for Sephardi, Sephardic, and Sephardim. They're Canaanites. You know what I'm saying? It's like Jew come from the word Jebusite. Okay, let's go look at some of this history dealing with these folks with super, you know, and super, it is where they come from. And then they'll tell you, you know what I'm saying? That's like I was telling y'all about, you know, how the dollar got and knew it on it. That ain't nothing but the slick word for the Babylonian god and knew it. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna be what's on the dollar. You know what I'm saying? It's just in the English term, you know, and they put that on the on the first dollar that all dollars come from. You can't count to 10 unless you start from 1, and they got and knew it on a dollar, which lets you know that this is a Babylonian system, and the Babylonians are the founders of capitalism, and government administrations, you know, and everything. How a civilization functioned, they had it in Babylon first, and then it would be taken to the Western Hemisphere through them Sepharvims, them those Amorite Sephardi Jews who we Hebrews abandon our heritage to. But as you read about super, you know, they'll tell you that super was around during the time of the angelic beings that had mixed with the people, the God's sons mixed with the humans, and that's basically what the Babylonian stories is about. They gods, Murdoch, Norinjel, and all them is about the felon angelic beings and stuff, where they become the Babylonian gods, and the Babylonians served them because I guess they was in opposition with the Creator when they went and made it with the humans, and then the Creator didn't tell them that. See, that's rebellion right there. Well, the Sepharvim's history go all the way back to them. They gonna be the only people on the face of the earth that got a history that go all the way back to the Tower of Babel and to the destruction when the Creator destroyed them folks, and also when the flood came. You know what I'm saying? They will be before the flood and after the flood. That's in the Bible because they are kin to them giants. Them Nephilims and Raphalims, them like they parents and stuff. And then them people would go to Babylon, and then they would kick it there. You know, they would kick it there, and then that's where all the mixed folks, all the mixed people, all the tribes and nations would go to Babylon to mix. That's why the Creator told the prophet Abraham to get on away from them areas, because in them areas they was mixing and then trying to become one. And that ain't what the Creator created. You know, the Creator created different stocks. You know what I'm saying? The humans. That's like it's different stocks of birds. You got the eagles. You don't see the eagle go trying to mate with a pigeon. You got the blue jays. You got the red birds. You got all kind of different birds. And you don't see them birds too much cross mixing with the other birds and stuff. Well, that's the same way the Creator had the, you know what I'm saying, us humans set up. And then it, you know, if they did mix, you know, them folks would take you away from the worship of the Creator. Like today now, if you mix with another ethnic group and you are descended from the transatlantic slave trade, it's easy for them folks to get you and take you away from your heritage and make you deny it and make you defend a neutral position. We can't have no neutral position dealing with our heritage, because neutrality, it benefits our enemies, because our enemies, you know, they aren't supposed to have our heritage endures, you know, this way. But as you read about Sipper is where the Babylonian scribes come from, that we Hebrews abandoned our heritage to in the book of Jeremiah during the Babylonian wars. It's like 134 years after they was placed. And when you study Sipper, you will see that Sipper is real important. This is where all the God's history come from. Sipper, and then Sipper is going to be on the other side of the Euphrates. You see, if you look right here, you know, Sipper, you know, and if you look at all these towns on the other side, meaning the Euphrates, even Babylon and Bar Sipper, you know, that's the other twin city. And then, you know, and it's like the people from Qatar, all these people in these areas was placed, this were the scribes from, but this were the main scribes was from Sipper. The main scribes is from Sipper. Them the people that go all the way back to the Tower of Babel. That's going to be the Sephardims, the people that was placed in our land. And they are Amorites. You see, this whole area, Murray and all this was founded by Amorites. And they are some Amorite people. And when we start slipping, them folks was placed in our land. And when we was chased off, we gave everything to them. Now, a lot of Hebrews don't have this in their history. Most Hebrews don't have this in their history unless you've been watching the Israelite Brotherhood channel. Unless you've been watching this Israelite Brotherhood channel, learning some real history that's free of Jewish myths. I'm showing you what happened to us and how we got in the conditions, in the position that we in now, and how we sleep, because we dealing with some folks that can take your whole mind away if you believe in them. And being raised up under them and they institutions. And they institutions is designed to take you away from your heritage and to keep you in suspense. Alright, check this. Them people from Qatar, Sephardim, all them folks was placed in our land in 722 BC. And them people looked at like this. They had some pigmentation too. You know, that's like them Amorites. Them Amorite Sephardims coming from Babylon, where a lot of people, like a lot of Hamite tribes, the Cushites and them other folks, you know, lived in, you know, the Mesopotamian area. So they would mix with them. And that's where that word Semitic come from. And they would have some pigmentation. And these what they would look like when they came into our land. You know, they would have a little pigmentation, and we didn't just too much try to get up with them, even though it was some other folks that didn't have no pigmentation in the promised land, gonna be all Canaan kids, and we didn't, the Canaanites, and we didn't chase them folks out the promised land. It was a whole bunch of them that we left in the land, and we got ensnared, we got trapped up fooling with them, and we eventually got took down and took out fooling with them folks. But that's what they gonna be like. And in this day, trade routes that they had all over the earth before, some of it before we even come into heritage. You know how they was trading with the nations and stuff, the Amorites. And then after we abandoned our heritage to them, man, they traded with everybody all over the earth, and they would make Jews and all those different nations and lands that they trade in. And then that's like now today they saying that those folks are the Israelites. And some of us Hebrews be confused and deceived, and we say, yeah, them our brothers in the East, them our brothers in China, them our brothers in Europe, and you know, don't know nothing about the history, you know, not knowing that we was only scattered to the four corners of the earth. You know, we still in captivity, and the United States military got us everywhere. You know, that's that four corners of the earth being scattered, because we still in captivity and stuff. You know, but them the folks, and look, that's a devil, that's the head rabbi. You know, he called us a monkeys and stuff, and he's an evil individual, and he hate us, and he hate us coming into heritage. This individual right here is their lead rabbi. Right now today, he's a Sephardim, a Sephardi, Nephilim, Raphaelim, a descendant, and he an evil individual. He's so evil, I can't even explain how evil he is, and he hate us Israelites, and he hate the thought of us coming back into our heritage. And that's what them folks look like. And they were scribes, and they were scribes from Babylon. They're responsible for the whole Western civilization. They're responsible for the whole Western civilization. And a lot of people don't know this because after they set this stuff up, the Western civilization set up, they've been doing it for so long that they can kick back in the back. And when you go to school and they institutions and get jobs, you work at their companies and they setups that they've been had control for thousands of years. That's like the natural resources in the earth and how it's in its raw form and then it's being turned into a product. They've been having control of that for thousands of years, for thousands of years, for thousands of years. They've been controlling capitalism. They created capitalism. They created words, the meanings, encyclopedias, all that, even though it was translated, when we get to translating English from Latin, well, the Latin come from them and from when they went and settled in Europe and France and Lower Italy, and man, they had colleges. They took Egypt over with. When the Greeks took it over, they took Egypt over, but they had already been doing trade with Mesopotamia. You know, the Egyptians doing trade with Mesopotamia. It's a long history of how the Egyptians corresponded with the Mesopotamians and did trade with the Mesopotamians. And then that's like us Hebrews, when we got that covenant, from the Creator coming up out of Egypt, the covenant that we got was a new culture that was supposed to destroy the Amorite culture that went from Egypt all the way to Babylon. That went from Egypt, from the Nile all the way to Mesopotamia to the Euphrates. And the culture that we got from Moses was supposed to destroy them. And us destroying them would have destroyed Egypt. It would have been like the domino effect. All the wicked nations and everything associated with Babylon would have ceased to exist if we would have did that culture. And that was one of the reasons why them folks came and got placed in our land while we was on the Egyptian religion, because they was like waiting for any opportunity to seize our heritage. You know, it's like I say, they didn't steal it, we abandoned it to them. You know, they didn't take it from us, we ran off and left it, but they was waiting right there like some greedy, hungry wolves. They was waiting like some greedy, hungry wolves. And then when we finally, they people, Nebuchadnezzar and them, they probably, I believe that they sent Nebuchadnezzar, even though the Creator sent them because we was doing Egyptian religion. But Nebuchadnezzar and them Babylonians were they kinfolks. They was they kinfolks in the temple that Nebuchadnezzar repaired and fixed back up. It was one of the ancient temples that they had constructed long time ago. So he was slick paying homage to them. Sepharvims, when they came to the promised land and chased us off, us real Hebrews off into Africa. And let me go into this because I keep talking about this, but this history is in all the videos. I got a lot of this history, but I ain't just focused wholly on the Sepharvims like I'm doing now, because it's important that we get this, man. I should have been had about 10 videos up on them devils, because them devils are responsible for the conditions that we in now, trying to sustain and keep the conditions that we in. They don't want us to know that we Hebrews. That's why come they influence rap so heavily, because rap is another instrument to destroy us when it fall into the Babylonian scribes' hand. They know how to turn clean music and make it evil and wicked and make it work against you, because they've been doing that for thousands of years. They know how to take something innocent and turn it into something destructive, because they got that power. They've been doing it. You know, they God's history. All them evil, wicked gods that they worship in Babylon, them gods explain their history. Each one of them is responsible for a certain type of destruction, and they God's history explain how to achieve that destruction. Well, that's what them people been dealing with and keeping their history for thousands of years. So they know how to come in and they could take a word and switch it around. Now that word negative, they could take that same word, switch it around. Now that word positive. You know what I'm saying? Or they can create words. You know, that's like they created the J. They created the J. They brought the J into existence. You know what I'm saying? And that's the power that they got. But this is where them folks was placed at in the promised land in 722 BC. You see that name Sepharvaim. We was slipping on Egyptian religion, and I'm gonna try to go cover some of that too. After I read this, I'm gonna show you how we was slipping on Egyptian religion, and then how we abandoned everything to them. See, these people was placed, them Sepharvaims, them people from Qatar, them people was placed in our land in 722 BC while we was slipping on some Egyptian religion. And we didn't do nothing to them because, you know, they were slick Amorites. They was like the people almost that was there that we didn't drove off. They blended in. They blended in. And then they just sitted and waited. And then when we was chased off the land, man, they had everything. All right. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Qatar and from Abel and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. See, these gonna be the people that created all the myths, all the lies concerning Israelite history that's been accepted today. They created that, you know, after we abandoned our heritage to them, and they were scribes from Babylon. They created a whole lot of false history. And one of the false history is during Assyrian times, they say that 10 tribes was taken, and that those 10 tribes ran up to Europe, was taken to Assyria, and then from Assyria they went all up in Europe and lived and stuff, and that's how the Queen of England and all them old evil folks can trace their heritage to the Israelites, they say. But I show that that's a lie, and I show that all the tribes went into Africa during the Babylonian wars, except that 1% that was taken to Babylon. And when they come back home from Babylon, how they got destroyed. They got videos explaining how they got destroyed, how the Greeks come in and get them, because they was mixing. You know, that's the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. You know, the Hebrews couldn't mix with the enemies and pass our heritage off to them. You know, we couldn't do that. And that's what the exiles was doing when they come home from Babylon. They start mixing with the enemies, and then the enemies, you know, the Greeks come in and put their lights out because we couldn't mix with them Babylonian scribes. And the people that was still in the promised land, people that was in the promised land after we had ran into Africa, and that 1% that was taken to Babylon, it was still people in our land. You know, it's like the promised land was empty for 50 years. You know, the promised land was empty for 50 years. Wasn't no Hebrews in the land during the Babylonian wars. And I'm going to show this. All right. So we see that the Sepharvaims, the Sephardi Jews, them going to be the oldest people that we abandon our heritage to, that got control of it today, is going to be the Sepharvaims. That's the Hebrew word for Sephardi, Sephardic, and Sephardim. We abandoned our heritage to them during the Babylonian wars when the Egyptians killed King Josiah after he done cleaned up the Egyptian religion. And then the Egyptians will put us on the Egyptian religion, and then we will run off into Africa saying that we only wanted to do African Egyptian religion. And we stayed there to the transatlantic slave trade. And how you know that them Hebrews didn't come back out of Africa after saying that they was going there to worship the African religions is because when the Persians defeated the Babylonians, the people had a chance to come home. You know, it's like when the Babylonians when we went into Africa in 588 BC, abandoning our heritage to those Sephardi Jews and Ashkenazi too. I'm going to show how they came in the picture. And when we went into Africa during the Babylonian wars in 588 BC to the book of Malachi, 420 BC is 168 years. You know, we'd have been in Africa, the Queen of Heaven worshippers, who I'm going to show you about this. And then we would have been in Africa 256 years when the Greeks show up in 332 BC. So these people that went into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion never return home. Never return home. And we represent them. And that's how we can show that we are the Hebrew Israelites now. Because we have correct history. We're not using Jewish myths to explain our Israelite history no more. It's impossible to show that this history is wrong, because this is actually what happened. You know, we went into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion, and we was enslaved from there. Okay, check this out, Hebrews. All right, let's do it like this here. Okay, let's go to let me do some old history about them. All right. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuddar and from Ava and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. Okay, this is in 722 BC. Those people started to do our heritage. They was following our heritage that we had, you know, in the northern kingdom. They was trying to do it, and they was mixing it with their Babylonian history as they do today. You know, it's like, you know, the people from Nordiums, they had Norgel and all those Babylonian gods. You know, those gods' history are resurfacing today. That's like when that dude Kodak Black got that video pulling up in the demon on God, where those gods are some Inkies. And Enki is the Babylonian god. That's the father of Murdoch. You know what I'm saying? So they slick got you worshiping Egyptian gods. They real slick, Hebrews. They real slick. Alright, so we know that when these Sepharvaim was placed in our land in 722 BC, that they was doing the traditions that they had in the northern kingdom. They even brought one of the priests back to teach them. So they feared, this is 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 32. So they feared the Elohim and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests and of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. They feared the Elohim and served their own gods, and after the manner of the nations whom they carried away unto this day, they do after the manner, the former manners. They fear not the Lord, neither do they after their own statutes. After, you know what I'm saying? That's what they did. All right. So these nations feared the Elohim and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children's, as they do their fathers do unto this day. Okay, that's in 722 BC when they was placed. They will be learning our tradition. You know what I'm saying? And then when you get to 2 Chronicles 30, 2 Chronicles 30. When you get to 2 Chronicles 30, you will see that them folks was around and came to the Passover dinner under King Hezekiah, this them. And they able to change all colors, you know, the mixing, being Semitic. Alright. Alright, Hebrews. Alright, them people would come to the Passover dinner under King Hezekiah 7 years after they was placed. And that's going to be 2 Kings chapter 30 verse 25. And you can also see during King Hezekiah times that this is 7 years after the so-called Assyrian wars, that you still got all the tribes still in the land. And it's a known fact that the Assyrians controlled Babylon also, and they would take Babylon over briefly, and that's why Manasseh was taken there. That's King Hezekiah's son, and he was released. You know, he had turned wicked and started doing the Canaanite, Babylonian, Amorite religion, and then the Creator would get him snatched up, and then he would get taken to Babylon, and then he would get released and come back home after he prayed and changed his ways. And then he had a son, Amon, And then Amon didn't stay on the throne no time, maybe 2 years, I think. And then they killed him. And then his little son, King Josiah, was 8 years old. He was a prophecy king. He was a prophecy king going back 300 years. He would be born and he would clean the whole tribes of Israel up. Our only time being cleaned up Egyptian and all the other religions since King David, well, since Prophet Samuel and Saul and King David, which we only did the covenant for 130 years. You know, it's like I show in the other videos how we was only in the promised land for 800 years and how that wasn't enough time to leave an imprint on, you know, that where people can identify us today for previously living in the promised land, and that we didn't stay there long. And then how the Canaanite culture existed there for thousands of years before we even come into heritage. You know, the Amorites, had a covenant, but then they mixed with them Nephilims and Raphalims, you know. And like I say, the Nephilims and Raphalims come out the Caucasus Mountain, and then they came from the Zagros Mountains. And then the people, you know, them Amorites were mixed with them. But you see, the Canaanite culture, 2400 BC, Canaanite culture over Babylon, 22 BC, and then that's when our prophet Abraham, our father, leave the Mesopotamia area because them Amorites and them folks was wicked for mixing with them Nephilims and Raphalims, and they had ritual prostitution. They had male prostitution. That's where all that gay stuff come from. And then prophet Abraham would even go to where the folks started out first at, Sodom and Gomorrah, up in them areas where the gay stuff was, the gay male prostitution and all that wicked stuff that the Amorites had created. And then the Creator destroyed their civilization and sent them Amorites scattering. And when we was formed as a nation coming out of Egypt, we were supposed to destroy them and destroy their wicked culture. All the wickedness that go on today come from the Babylonians' gods' history, and them scribes learn how to do the Babylonians' gods' history from the instructions from their gods on how to create plagues, destruction, and to destroy people and to turn them into beasts, cattle and stuff, where they don't have no man, where you can rule over them forever. And it's like taking the Creator's creation and turning it upside down. And that's what they've been doing, and that's what they want to do. And us Hebrews coming into our heritage will put an end to that. You know, that's why come they got us so confused and we don't know what's going on, is because we up under their culture, but we waking up. All right. So we see that. So like I say, them people was placed in our land in 722 BC. And then when King Hezekiah called us to the Passover dinner, because he was trying to get us right, that them people came to the Passover dinner too. So it was like they was doing our culture. You know, they was doing our culture. Here goes some strangers that was placed in our land that basically they land on the slick side because they Amorites. And it's like when they was placed in Samaria, they was being placed back in their lands that their ancestors controlled, you know, the Canaanite tribes, because Babylon was founded by Amorites, and Sippar is one of their main places. I can show you all the kings that come from Sippar, and they was Amorites, and they tell you right now today that they Amorites, but they think that the people are so far gone and so confused on the truth that they could tell little bitty pieces of truth and it wouldn't matter, because the people can't make the connection with them and, you know, they wickedness and stuff. Okay, but the Israelite Brotherhood can, and that's what I'm doing in this history, supposed to free Hebrews and wake you up and put you on the right tracks. You know, that's what the Israelite Brotherhood is about. All right, like I say, in 715 BC, they came to the Passover dinner. They came to the Passover dinner under King Hezekiah. And King Hezekiah was trying to get everybody to come to the Passover dinner. And them folks came, them Babylonian scribes. Like I say, you know, the northern kingdom was on Egyptian religion for since 931 BC. And they was all messed up. You know what I'm saying? The King Hezekiah tried to straighten us up, but we wouldn't get straightened up until his great grandson King Josiah come about, who was a prophecy king that went all the way back to when Jeroboam come out of Egypt with them religions after Solomon's death. You know, it's like I got videos explaining how Solomon was real wicked and how Solomon took us down. You know, we lost our heritage because Solomon. But them same Babylonian scribes that explain our history are try to say that Solomon was a wise man. And they only say that because they know that Solomon brought the tribes of Israel down, and that caused them to inherit our heritage. Because if it wasn't for Solomon evil wicked deeds and what he did with all them women and having all them old evil wicked temples put up in our land and stuff, and you know, the kingdom, you know, split, and then, you know, everything would eventually fall to those Jews, to the Amorites, the Sephardims, you know, after we abandoned the heritage and went into Africa. All right, this is a 10 Lost Tribe myth killer. While I'm finna show y'all how them folks was placed in our land, I can also show how it wasn't no 10 Lost Tribes during the Syrian times, you know. And it's like King Hezekiah sent a letter to all Israel and Judah and wrote letters unto Ephraim and Manasseh. This is in 715 BC, that they should come unto the house of the Elohim at Jerusalem to keep the Passover unto the Elohim Yah of Israel. For the king had taken counsel and his princes and all the congregation in Jerusalem to keep the Passover in the 2nd month, for they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together at Jerusalem, for the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree and make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to the house of the Elohim unto Passover at Jerusalem, for they had not done it of a long time in such sort as it was written. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Elohim Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remain of you that are escaped out of the hands of the king of Assyria. So he naming all the tribes that escaped out of the hands of the king of Assyria. And as you read on down, you know what I'm saying, you'll see that he naming the tribes. So the post passed from city to city throughout the countries of Ephraim, Manasseh, even to Zebulun, but they laughed them to scorn and mocked them. Nevertheless, diverse of Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came unto Jerusalem. All right, but as you read over here, when he had said that he sent a decree, a proclamation from Beersheba even to Dan, that was our whole inheritance. That was our whole inheritance right there, and I'm going to show that. So all the tribes is home. It wouldn't make no sense for King Hezekiah to send a letter from Beersheba to Dan and ain't nobody there. All right, so you see Beersheba right there, and then he sent it all the way to Dan. That's a long way. And asked them to come on back down here to Passover, you know what I'm saying, in Jerusalem. And they did, you know what I'm saying, they did, but some of them made fun and didn't want to. Alright, we was all messed up. We was straddling the fence, hanging in on both sides of the fence. We on this side of the fence and we on that side of the fence is what we did. We straddled the fence during King Hezekiah's time. Alright, and then as you read, he said, for a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim, Manasseh, Ishkar, and Zebulun had not cleansed themselves, yet they did eat the Passover, otherwise that it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Elohim pardon everyone. See, so all the tribes was there, and then all the tribes that's not mentioned during King Hezekiah time gonna be mentioned during his great grandson King Josiah time. You know, they gonna be there, and we know that he cleaned up the whole Israel, and that was after the Assyrian captivity. The Assyrian captivity was over with. We finna start dealing with the Babylonians. The Syrians was off the map. Matter of fact, during this time, the Babylonians, Scythians, Ashkenaz, and them was destroying Assyria, finna wipe Assyria off the face of the map. Man, I got history going into this. Okay, as you read, you know, showing that them tribes was there in 715 BC, You're going to see, and that King Hezekiah told them Hebrews to come to the Passover dinner at Jerusalem. This is when them Sephardims came also. So they was doing our heritage. And as you read down from 2 Chronicles 30, and then you get to verse 25, and all the congregation of Judah, and the priests and the Levites, and all the congregation that come out of Israel, and the strangers that come out of the land of Israel, that dwelt in Judah. You see it say strangers. Strangers, that's going to be them Sephardims, them people that was placed in Samaria in 722 BC. The people we abandon our heritage to. See, we abandon our heritage to because after Amon got killed, that's going to be King Hezekiah's grandson. Then King Josiah was born. The Egyptians killed him, and we would go back to the Egyptian religion and then go into Africa. Let me get this in real quick. Here, all right, let's go to that's going to be 1 Kings chapter 13. You know, 13 is like a bad luck number for them. They want us to make us think it's bad luck, but it's a whole lot of history about the enemies on 13. In 13 verses, 13 chapters through the scripture. I got some of that mapped out in some of the videos. I think in the Esther video I go into this. Alright, so Jeroboam was chased to Egypt by Solomon. Solomon chased Jeroboam to Egypt. Jeroboam was being chased to his relatives. Jeroboam was from the tribe of Ephraim. You know, Jeroboam gonna be of the tribe of Ephraim. Ephraim is Joseph's son that he had by the Egyptian woman. You know what I'm saying? Let me show this real quick too. Let's show this real quick. Alright. So we know we go to Exodus. That's going to be Exodus 41. Exodus 41. Alright. And Joseph, and Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephaniah and gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, and Joseph went out all over Egypt. Alright, Joseph is going to be given that priest of On daughter as a strategic means by Pharaoh, because after prophet Joseph answered Pharaoh's dreams, Pharaoh seen that his whole religious system wasn't no good, and then he probably knew that them Hebrews was going to be a threat some kind of way, because here go one that the creator was behind and supporting. You see what I'm saying? So he gave Joseph Asenath, the priest of On daughter. And the priest of On is the priest of the whole Egyptian religious system, is where it's founded at. And they will corrupt the tribe of Ephraim. Alright, and unto Joseph was born sons before the year of the famine, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for Yah said he had made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. In the name of the second called he Ephraim, for Yah had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Alright, so he gonna have them two sons in the tribe of Ephraim. You know what I'm saying? Gonna be mostly afflicted with the Egyptian stuff. And then you can see some Egyptians left with us doing Exodus that will cause us to worship the golden calf when Moses went up to get the law, the new covenant that would have destroyed the Egyptian and Amorite culture. You know, that's like I say, the golden calf is like what the cross is to Christianity, and all its branches is what the golden calf was to the Egyptian religion. It covered through Egyptian religions. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, flocks, herds, and very much cattle. Them gonna be the people leaving with us in Exodus with prophet Moses, and then them gonna be the same people that's gonna influence us while Moses gone. You see what I'm saying? They gonna influence us with that golden calf stuff. You know, them gonna be the people that's gonna, you know, when Moses gone. And when the people, this is Exodus 32, and when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto us, make us gods which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we know not what has become of them. All right, and you know, he got all the little stuff from them, and he graven, and he received them at their hands and fashioned it with a graven tool, and made it in a molten calf, and said, this be the gods which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. See, so them Egyptians leaving with us was a strategic plan by Pharaoh to disrupt us and mess us up. To keep us throwed off. Because if we doing Egyptian religion, we can't do the creative covenant that he gave us that would have got rid of the Egyptian religion and the Canaanite culture. Alright, so when Jeroboam got chased to Egypt, by Solomon. This is during Solomon time. This is after the death of King David. We only did the covenant for 130 years from Samuel, Saul to King David. 1100 BC to about 971 BC. About them parts. But when King David passed away, it was like about 130 some years. All right, and Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, a Ephrathite, that's an Ephraimite of Zeruiah, Solomon's servant, whose mother name was Zeruiah, a widow woman, when he lifted up his hand against the king. All right, Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt unto Shawshank. That's gonna be his relative. That's gonna be his kinfolks. And he gonna say, "Hey man, follow me. Solomon can't come here and do nothing to you. You safe here." And then while he there, put that Egyptian religion on him. And then knowing that the Creator done blessed him with the 10 tribes, so them Egyptians gonna put that Egyptian worship on him, and they kinfolks. He stayed there to Solomon's death, and then he come out. And then when he came out, he put them golden calves on us. Whereupon the king took counsel, this Jeroboam, whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 golden calves, and said unto them, "It is too much for you to go to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt." So man, he done put the 2 golden calves on them. Just double the burden now. All right, and then that's when King Josiah was prophesied. This is 300 years before King Josiah was born. And behold, there come a man of Yah out of Judah by the word of the Elohim unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense, and he cried against the altar in the word of the Elohim, and said, "Altar, altar, this saith the Elohim, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee." All right, so them. The enemy is going to probably be happy that we slipping on all these different religions. So we on the Egyptian religion. All right, now when King Josiah born, after the Syrian captivity and the Syrian troubles over with, that his great-grandfather Hezekiah had to deal with, that was over with. And then King Josiah get a chance to clean the promised land up. He was born. He come on the throne at 8 years old. It was a miracle. We could have made anybody king during them times. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 130 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Elohim, and walked in the ways of David his father, and declined neither to the right hand nor to the left. For in the 8th year of his reign, while he was yet young, he began to seek after Yah of David his father, and in the 12th year he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places and the groves and the carved images and the molten images. Prophet Jeremiah will come around the next year, and he will be there all the way to the end till we ran into Africa. Now this is a fresh start from us. When King Josiah did this, he was resetting our sins to 0. We was like Sodom and Gomorrah in the land. Our wickedness was on comparable to them, and they got set at 0. And then after the Egyptians killed King Josiah and put us back on the Egyptian religion, we were running to Africa, abandoning our heritage to the Babylonian scribes that's been responsible for the whole Babylonian history. All right. And they break down the altars of Balaam, and in his presence, in the images that were on high above them, he cut down in the groves and the carved images and the molten image. He break in pieces and made dust of them, and strode it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. And he burnt the bones of the priests of their altars, and cleansed Judah and Jerusalem. And so did he in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simon, even unto Naphtali. Those gonna be the tribes that wasn't mentioned during his great-grandfather time. So if all the tribes around during his great-grandfather time, and then they're around during his time, then it wasn't no 10 lost 10 lost tribes like the Jewish myths try to perpetrate. And when he had broken down the altars and the groves and beaten the images into powder and cut down all the idols throughout all the land of Israel, he returned to Jerusalem. So he done cleaned the whole kingdom up. All right, like I say, the Egyptians would kill him. We was clean of Egyptian religion. We was clean of Egyptian religion for 30 years. 30 years. And then the Egyptians would come kill King Josiah, put us back on the Egyptian religion, and then the Creator would send the Babylonians in to get us Ashkenazi on them horses. He would send Ashkenazi in on them horses to get us Ashkenazi in on them horses, because Ashkenazi had took Chaldea over, and then they would come and chase us about the land. They came with body parts and everything on their horses, or their victims that they had killed in battle. They'll ride down on you with their skeleton parts on their horses, and you'll see that and you'll be terrified and take off. And they chased us up off the land. That's what happened during the Babylonian wars. And this is what we said. You know, if you read the book of Jeremiah, it go into it in detail before we was chased up off the land, the things that we was doing and stuff. And it come to pass, this is Jeremiah 43, and it come to pass that when Jeremiah had made an end of speaking unto all the people the words of the Elohim their Yah, for which the Elohim their Yah had sent him to them, even all these words. Then spake Azariah the son of Hoshea, Johanan the son of Ker, and all the proud men, saying unto Jeremiah, Thou speakest falsely. The Elohim our Yah had not sent thee to say, Go not into the land of Egypt to sojourn there, but Baruch the son of Ner setteth thee on edge for to deliver us into the hand of the Chaldeans, that they might put us to death and carry us away to Babylon. See, we wasn't trying to hit it. You know, we wanted to go into Africa where we thought it was safe, and I got a bunch of videos explaining how we always wanted to go back to Africa. I even showed that one of the prophets that believed in the Creator ran to Egypt, and how the Egyptians gave him up to the king Jehoiakim that was searching for him. But look, you see, the whole land was empty. Like I showed you, the land was empty for 50 years. Look, this said the Elohim of hosts, the Yah of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem and upon all the cities of Judah, and behold, this day they are a desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. All the tribes had to run to Judah, the fence wall, for protection during the Babylonian wars, and we all would go into Africa. That's what this is. That's what this verse cover right here. All the tribes going into Africa. All the tribes. If you go to 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 26, and you will see it says, And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies, arose and came to Egypt, for they was afraid of the Chaldeans. And this is what we said, you know, to get chased up off the land. If you go to Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18, that was a state of mind. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken to us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off from burning incense unto the Queen of heaven, and pouring out drink offerings unto her, to my eyes, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. We said because we wasn't doing the Egyptian religion was why the Babylonians was chasing us off the land. So we slick disrespect the Creator. We was confused, and we got our mouth tore out, because when them Hebrews went into Africa, all the tribes, and that 1% that was captured and took it to Babylon, and then when they came back, that 1%, and how they could only live in Judah cities, well, the millions, the 99%, didn't come back to be reunited with them. We didn't come back out of Africa to be reunited with them. You know what I'm saying? And that's what caused our enslavement. That's what caused our enslavement, because the Creator said that we broke the covenant, and we broke the covenant then in the book of Jeremiah. In the book of Jeremiah, see, when these individuals, prophets, came back home from Babylon, we didn't come out of Africa to be reunited with them after saying that we was going there to worship the Egyptian religion. Thus breaking the covenant and leaving everything to those self-hardy Jews. You know, we abandoned everything to them. We abandoned our whole culture and heritage to them. You know, we abandoned everything to them. And then that's how they got our history. So they didn't steal nothing. They didn't steal no history. They didn't, well, they rewrote history as a lie now, but they didn't steal it from the beginning. We gave it to them. We gave it to them. So, you know, that's, you know, messed up. And it's like they've been trying to mess the name Israel up, man, before we come back in the heritage. They want that name to be so dirty and so messed up. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we Hebrews have to teach some truth. You know, we abandoned our heritage to them Babylonian scribes, and them folks was from Sepharavim, and they are myth writers. They created all the myths. They created all the myths and made a whole bunch of Jews out of people that wasn't Israelites, but people that they went to their land and kicked it with them for trade purposes, and then they converted them. You know, so, you know, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. We Hebrews abandon our heritage to the self-hardy Jews. We abandon our heritage to them. We abandon our heritage to them. And then those are the people that the world think are Jews. You know what I'm saying? That's like one of the biggest tricks. One of the biggest tricks that they put down was making a whole lot of Bibles. Because once the people thought that they was the Israelites, and then they made all them Bibles, and then that went into all them other nations' lands, then that gave them folks the right to rule and do what they want to, and made people scared of them, because the people think that they connected to the Creator and stuff, and they ain't. And they some Babylonian scribes mixed with Nephilims and Rephilims. And how, look, Hebrews, they even got the Babylonian gods on their door at the library, the Congress of Library. They even got the Babylonian god Nabu there. This is a Babylonian system. You know, this is a Babylonian system. And it's like here in America, you know what I'm saying, in New York, they got the image of King Josiah. He the one that killed King, the image of Necho that killed King Josiah. They got his image up there. And then they got the image of that obelisk that we went enslaved with in Egypt in the beginning of our enslavement in Egypt. That's the obelisk that was erected. And then that's the statue of Necho that killed us when we got off the Egyptian religion. And then they put us back on it. He put us back on it. Caused our enslavement. So America is an Egyptian and Babylonian system. And then you see the Babylonian god and knew it on the money. You know, you see the Babylonian god and knew it on the money. You see what I'm saying? And then we know that the people from Sipper, the Sepharavims, and all them other places was placed in our land, and that we abandoned our heritage to them during the Babylonian wars when we was chased off the promised land into Africa. Plain and simple as that. It don't get no easier than that. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Shalom, Hebrews. I pray this history do you some good and wake you up, and tell the other Hebrews to subscribe. Let's get some of this subscription up so the Hebrews can know when these videos coming out. Shalom. I'm going to go into a little more detail about these folks. You know, it's a lot of history to explain about them. They the reason why the Hebrews sleep now with the false media and all the wickedness that we done absorbed since we've been here. Gonna come from the civilizations that they created. They are still Amorites, and they was Amorites when they was placed back in the promised land, and we gave everything back to them, to the Amorites. Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.